I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, you know, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." Read the NPR. NPR said, "It sounds like Chappelle is using white privilege to excuse his homophobia and transphobia." Wait, now Dave Chappelle can have white privilege? I'm really confused now.
Bill Maher has publicly turned on NPR as the media organization faces widespread accusations of leaning toward the Democratic Party. Given Maher's own frequent sympathy with the DNC, one might expect him to defend NPR. However, he did the opposite, launching a direct assault on NPR's credibility in a moment that stunned audiences. If you enjoy sharp political commentary, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.
PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, you know, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
This is classic Bill Maher, saying the quiet part out loud without concern for whom he offends. Maher argues that NPR isn't merely left-leaning but is firmly planted on the far left, despite its leadership's insistence on neutrality and objectivity. Maher draws the line at this pretense. While no one realistically expects a major media outlet to openly admit its biases, pretending they don't exist is, in his view, a different and dishonest issue. He contends that claiming neutrality while consistently pushing one ideological worldview insults the audience's intelligence. NPR, he suggests, has drifted so deep into ideological comfort that it no longer recognizes its own slant. The core problem isn't that NPR has opinions, everyone does, but its refusal to acknowledge them. Maher's criticism is particularly potent because it comes from someone generally aligned with NPR politically, making the accusation harder to dismiss.
I mean, I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be private.
Maher raises a critical point. When an outlet like NPR receives government funding, it inevitably invites questions about independence, accountability, and influence. Even if no direct pressure exists, the perception alone can undermine public trust. Maher argues this is why privatization makes sense. A publicly subsidized media organization can too easily be perceived as aligned with the priorities of the party in power, especially in today's toxic, polarized climate. NPR may have once served a unifying role, but in an era of ideological warfare, that mission feels outdated. Going private, Maher suggests, would force NPR to stand on its own credibility, audience support, and transparency. If NPR truly believes in its neutrality, privatization would be the cleanest.
Yeah, I think Yuri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context, I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat, in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing?" And I said, "What do you mean the same thing?" And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, "It's always about how somebody can't do something."
NPR's alleged bias came into sharper focus following revelations about its edited interview with Kamala Harris. While editing interviews for time, clarity, or relevance is standard practice, leaked footage suggested NPR went far beyond routine cleanup. Critics allege the editing restructured Harris's responses in a way that significantly altered how her answers were perceived compared to the raw exchange. At that point, critics argue, the outlet isn't just editing for clarity. It's shaping perception. This incident reinforced long-standing suspicions that NPR frames coverage in ways that favor certain political figures. Whether intentional or not, the episode damaged NPR's claim of neutrality.
And that's what she was getting at, was that. I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now. I will listen to it daily, but it's no longer a general audience venue. They should just give up national funding. Yeah.
Maher strongly agrees that NPR should no longer receive public funding. In his view, if the network operated as a fully private institution, its political leanings, whatever they may be, would at least be honest and expected. Audiences already understand this dynamic. No one is shocked when Fox News tilts right or MSNBC leans left, as they are private companies answering to advertisers, owners, and audience incentives. Their biases are baked into their brands. NPR, however, cloaks itself in the language of public service and neutrality while taking taxpayer money from people across the political spectrum. Maher finds this contradiction unacceptable. Privatization, he argues, wouldn't silence NPR but would remove the illusion. Once free from public funding, NPR could openly take sides without pretending to speak for everyone. In today's hyper-partisan media landscape, honesty might...
Some of these reviews, I'm just going to read this one from NPR. It's because the reviews from the critics so at variance with the audience. Rotten Tomatoes, that's a amalgam of reviews. I think in this case 7. His special got a 43%. Audience 95. Says a lot about the differentiation between real people and the...
Maher points to NPR's coverage of comedian Dave Chappelle as a textbook example of its ideological bias. When Chappelle faced controversy for jokes about the trans community, NPR's coverage highlighted a critical review rating his special 4 out of 10 but notably omitted that audiences overwhelmingly gave it a 9 out of 10. To Maher, this contrast wasn't just a difference of opinion but selective framing. By amplifying elite criticism while downplaying public reception, NPR appeared less like a neutral observer and more like a cultural referee guiding listeners toward a preferred...
I don't have any problem with Latinx, but it doesn't seem to be making any inroads into the communities where most Latinx people live. And so you have this sort of educated dialect way of thinking. And that's the case here, where all of these people, I think, to get back to this simplicity idea, they see that Dave Chappelle is a comedian. There are layers of wit and irony and attitude going on. And instead, we're told to just read it as if it was the Three Bears, and we're being told that that's sophisticated, when really that means that these people who are, so annoyed that anybody says some words or expresses some ideas are saying that most of America aren't sophisticated. And yet, last time I checked, they were arguing on the basis of disempowered people.
Maher's guest argues that the so-called woke police thrive on theatrics rather than substance. According to this view, the goal isn't really to silence someone like Chappelle or resolve underlying issues. What truly matters is the performance being seen as fighting a righteous cause. It's not about real-world impact or practical solutions, which is why activists often latch onto controversies that don't directly affect their own lives. To Maher and his guests, this exposes a deeper problem. Activism driven by optics and virtue signaling, rather than lived experience, accountability, or genuine concern for the people.
That because you don't agree with what he said, which again, I don't think is transphobic. A lot of the special is about how he has this friendship with a trans person who is his opening act.
Maher noted that much of Chappelle's special centers on his friendship with a transgender opening act, which he argues isn't transphobic. Maher's broader point is about agency and responsibility. Comedy doesn't create hatred but reflects uncomfortable truths, tensions, or contradictions that already exist in society. Blaming a comedian, he argues, is an easy shortcut for media outlets that prefer outrage over nuance. Instead of addressing deeper social issues, they target entertainers as symbolic villains. That, to Maher, isn't journalism, it's moral panic dressed up as...
Now let me read the NPR. NPR said, it sounds like Chappelle is using white privilege to excuse his homophobia and transphobia. Wait, now Dave Chappelle can have white privilege? I'm really confused now.
This is precisely why Maher argues NPR should be defunded. In one critique, NPR suggested Dave Chappelle was operating from white privilege, a claim Maher and many others found not only absurd but revealing. Chappelle is one of America's most prominent black comedians, and his career has been shaped by experiences far removed from the simplistic privilege framing used by NPR. Maher sees this as ideological language overriding basic reality. What makes it more troubling, he contends, is that this framing came from a government-funded organization. When taxpayer-supported outlets adopt activist buzzwords and force them into narratives where they don't fit, public trust erodes. Maher's concern isn't about protecting Chappelle but about the principle: if publicly funded media can twist concepts like privilege to fit a political script, then neutrality becomes impossible and defunding becomes a logical response.